Hi, everyone. It's Margaret Manning here with LifeAfterDeath.com. LifeAfterDeath.com is a community of people who have a fascination and interest in the topic of life after death, reincarnation, the afterlife, near-death experience, and spirituality in general. Now, we ask lots of questions and look for our experts to provide answers for us. And today, my guest is Melinda Bernstein. Melinda is an ordained rabbi. She is a very proud mother and grandmother and believes that faith and family are at the center of her life. She's a practitioner of life cycle ceremonies where she basically facilitates weddings and funerals and helps guide people through transitions in their lives. So I'm very happy to have you here, Melinda. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So we've been talking about a couple of other things related to our mortality and to spirituality. And I must say that you're a very unusual rabbi.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
I think you should take it. No, you've got a very humanistic approach to that could apply to anyone in any situation, any faith, any dynamic. But I did want, for the purposes of this this particular audience, to talk about your expertise in the Jewish tradition, and I'd like to understand if you can share with us, what the belief system is around life after death. What happens to the body, to the soul, when the person leaves this physical realm?
Well, the neshama, that's the Hebrew word for the soul, is eternal. It comes in many different bodies throughout time. It learns lessons in those bodies during that time on earth. And when it is removed from its physical form, its lesson has been learned or not. But most likely, we'd like to believe that the lesson in that life was meaningful, was spiritual, brought the neshama into deeper awarenesses of its essence, and will carry it forth into the afterlife as a guide for its lineage, the people after them.
Okay.
And also to be connected to the guides before.
So this is interesting. And when you start talking about these things, the little Pandora's box opens of questions. But do you believe that the soul comes back? I mean, do you think it has you said learning lessons, does it get a second chance to learn those lessons? Where does it continue to grow? In heaven or in the spiritual realm?
Well, that's an interesting question. See, Jewish philosophy does believe in reincarnation, and that the soul will come back into another form and to experience a different lesson. So it's called Tikkun Olam, which is the healing of the world, the healing of the planet. Okay. That is what we're here for. But everything a Jewish person does in their life, in this current life that they're in, is for the betterment of the next world. So we call it the next world because it's the afterworld, the afterlife.
So you mentioned earlier that when the spirit, this is so interesting because other traditions have a similar cosmic energy or cosmic soul that everybody comes from and returns to. It's kind of what goes on in that middle stage. So when a person dies in the Jewish tradition, you said it goes to join the lineage of the family. How does that work if you then at the same time can come back and learn another lesson? Do you just...
Well, there's really I don't have a near-death experience to be able to articulate it in a way that somebody might have been able to do, but it's just the philosophy and the understanding. The liturgy explains it to us that when we are received, in other words, there's like a chariot that takes us to heaven. The angels take us to heaven. The archangels, Hashem's helpers, they are put in heaven as missionaries for us to help support us while we're embodied and while we're transitioning out of body. Our lineage, our families, our soul family is hopefully waiting in their space, in their perfect space. In Gan Eden is the ultimate highest place where our elders or our lineage or ancestors and their ancestors might be congregating in the experience of the afterlife, until which time that they are called back into another body to, they're drawn to, let's say, a completely new family where they could see that their unlearned lessons might benefit them to go back and receive the new education from the embodiment of where they're going into. It's sort of
so who calls them back?
Mystical.
Yeah, no, this is, well, of course, this is the subject is mystical. It's so incredibly interesting. But who calls them back? Do they have a guardian angel or someone that is watching out for their growth, their evolution?
Well, all souls have guardians and angels that are, there could be perhaps one, maybe more than one that's there for them, but the soul doesn't know it unless it reaches out. So it could just be like that one who might not know it might have the guardian put them back into life form so they can maybe learn it again and be more connected. So every time we have a new life, we're getting more evolved, hopefully, and we're evolving so that we can, in the Jewish faith, the Moshiach, the Messiah will come back at that point in time, that the whole world will be filled with beauty and, it won't be the tumultuousness that we're experiencing, but the crises will be over. So it's a cycle, a new cycle.
So the people who when you go in your tradition, when you go back into a body to kind of keep learning, the goal of that learning is to help create this perfect earth?
It's to help, I don't know that it's not about helping the earth, but it's about, living the Torah, the life of the Torah. So there are five books of Moses that are like instructions for life. So those instructions were written thousands of years ago for people who needed structure. That structure is still available today and to many different levels of interpretation. So maybe someone didn't interpret it the way that it was meant to be, or didn't live it the way it was meant to be expressed. And therefore, their soul family who receives them might not, it could be conflict. Mm-hmm. It's not like you get to heaven and it's all, there's lost souls, there's troubled souls, there's turbulence in the air, just like, an airplane, but, going beyond that we can't see or we can't feel or we can't touch. It's an energy that is like, when you feel somebody, when you walk by somebody and they feel good to you, it's like you want to be more around them. If you walk by somebody and you're like, repulse, well, that person will probably also have that same experience when they are out of their body. So what happens to that person? They're sort of like in flux. And they're not able to get to Gan Eden, which is the ultimate space in heaven or in God's heart, where you're melting into God's heart and God receives you, because God is the only judge. So we have to talk about that. He's the one, or ultimately we say he is the one who is in control of the whole web of the world. So if you've been good to the God in you and others, then you have a better chance at getting to Gan Eden. The better you work on yourself, the more chances are you won't reincarnate, or you'll get to that place, or you'll be reunited with your family. Maybe your family doesn't want you. Maybe your family is also, who has passed on, is still trying to get to the higher place, to more comfort. But ultimately, we don't know this. This is just conjecture and spiritual conversation.
Yeah. So in the Jewish tradition, do you have a belief that people can talk to people still on earth, like you could still talk to one of your ancestors and have any influence over their journey? I mean, is there still a communication?
Well, the communication is through prayer and ritual. So it's the same thing, like it's called Lador Vador, from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
So honoring their lives by honoring their tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's by our actions. It's but the connection might not be made by some people, like, what we're doing. Yesterday, I asked my mom a little something about her mom, and she said she was great to all my friends. She treated them like her child.
Yeah.
And, so here I am. I feel like, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. My kids and grandkids are on their own and doing their thing, but yet I still have that mother in me. Yeah. So as I continue to mother others, I'm honoring her. So that is the connection. If I want to divine with her, meditate with her, sit with her, like I have her altars here. I have altars for my ancestors right next to me. Mm-hmm. They're in my workspace. Sometimes I create an altar when I'm walking out in nature, and that's a very Jewish thing to do. Although it's not like it's the way that they were when the Jews were traveling. The Israelites were carrying the Torah through the desert to the promised land, and the whole story of that. And so we're all walking towards a promised land, and we're all experiencing being away from that. So it's just working towards that, feeling that promise, feeling that connection, or wanting that.
Okay, that's really interesting, Melinda. I did not know that the Jewish tradition believed in a reincarnation of sorts, that was possible. And that actually is very interesting, because it actually doesn't surprise me, because it's so connected to other traditions. But I was going to ask you, I don't know, you're not a sort of religious studies scholar, but has there been an evolution of the well, maybe you are, I shouldn't say that, but in the sense that you may not know the answer to this question, is there like a evolution of the way that Jewish tradition has viewed heaven and the process of learning? And, has it always been like that, or has it evolved with the culture that it finds itself in? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Well, first, let's say we have to define the culture, because you can ask one rabbi one thing and another rabbi another, and you're going to get very different answers. Yeah. So I'm not what they call a Talmid Chacham, which is a learned professional. And that was not my calling. My calling was to be more heart-centered as opposed to brain.
Right.
But it really has not changed throughout centuries. It's been I don't want to say a known fact, but a known belief that the Jewish life is perpetual, like the soul is perpetual. It might be in a body at one given time and then not at another given time. So there has been no flux on that. I can't really pinpoint when that began, but
yeah. No, it's just the reason I asked the question is with technology and so many things, science and discoveries about how the human body works, that a lot of some faiths actually evolve their interpretation of the relationship of the soul to its journey. And I don't know whether I'm just thinking of a conversation that I had with Philip Almond, who is a religious scholar, and he was talking about how Christianity and some others have changed their view of heaven from being a place where you go from heaven and hell and you're punished or not punished to a place where you're learning. This whole concept of learning on the journey was not always there in the older interpretations of heaven and hell. But I just wondered how consistent that's been in the Jewish tradition.
If I just sit there with your question inside intuitively, I just want to say it's been there from the beginning. I mean, Judaism is a beautiful language of love, a love affair with God and with life. And if people want to embrace it, they will find that what worked way back when can work now and could work in a beautiful way. And it's really all up into interpretation, personal perspective, and that you should follow that, because God ultimately wants us to follow our own star. And that's why you say I'm unique and different, because I feel like I need to follow my own star, and I don't want to be part of that boxed in experience that many rabbis are put in.
Well, I feel honored that I've met you because I really feel like you do represent for me a different type of person, a different type of rabbi, in the sense that you have got, like you said, heart-centered, that you are very human. And perhaps it's because of that is what you do, which is you guide people through weddings and funerals, and you do it in a way that is, I'm sure, very grounded in the Jewish tradition, but is almost like timeless. It's really more from the heart inside of you to their experience. So you're quite special.
Thank you. I have to honor my parents for teaching me to accept the differences in others and to embrace the differences in that we're in a unified world where everybody is a reflection of who we are, and we can learn from someone else who's not in our faith, and we can also embrace what they have to offer us as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's been really great. And I'm sure that there'll be some questions. So if you have a question, please, for Melinda or I, please leave it in the comment section below. We're always here to answer them. And I love the conversation, the dialogue, and this is authentic from your heart. And I'm sure wherever you are in your belief system, you'll find a place to connect with Melinda here. So thanks again for the conversation. It's been really wonderful, Melinda. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Life After Death YouTube channel and visit our website at lifeafterdeath.com. We are a community of people who are fascinated by the topic of life after death and subjects like near-death experience, the afterlife, reincarnation, and spirituality. Together, we are exploring and discovering these topics together with curiosity and an open heart.